before we get into this video, just want to say, guys, that this episode is presented by Prize Picks. Be sure to visit the Prize Picks app today for a $100 deposit match when you sign up. What's going on, Colts Nation? Welcome back to another episode of Bring the Juice. Guys, this was a very, very embarrassing day for the Indianapolis Colts. While the score was only 16-10 for this game, the Indianapolis Colts really allowed the Green Bay Packers to pretty much dominate the first 56 minutes of football of this game. And I mean, honestly, Cody, there might be only one person maybe two people that don't deserve blame for this. And honestly, I think the only person that doesn't deserve the blame at this point is Jonathan Taylor. We're going to talk about that here in a minute, but I mean, without going too much into detail, I mean, describe how you're feeling after this one.
I think just exhausted at this point, man. I mean, this was just, like you said, an absolute crap show again. And this is exactly what the Green Bay Packers wanted to do. And you knew exactly how they were going to do it, and I just felt like the Colts, while they showed some signs that they could do it at certain points, they also showed some signs where they seemed completely inept. I think the more concerning thing for me, Derek, is guys that you paid and expect to play well, frankly, have been horrible for you so far throughout the first 2 weeks of the season. And that's very concerning. You're paying a lot of guys a lot of contracts who frankly aren't living up to them. So, I mean, if this continues, Derek, this offseason, you're going to be cutting a lot of these contracts because it's bad. It was bad. It's been bad the last couple weeks. Players that you expect, captains on your team, looking like they don't even know how to make a form tackle. I mean, that's to the degree it was, Derek. So it was a painful game for sure. And it was a game that even though the Colts were never out of this, it just felt like they were for the entirety of this game. Like you said, the Green Bay Packers pretty much dominated. I mean, Derek, they had the ball over double the amount of time the Colts did in this game. They had the ball for 40 of the 60 minutes in this game. And I mean, it just was like that. Like the Green Bay Packers just did whatever they wanted to. And while the Indianapolis Colts certainly had opportunities, again, Derek, it's see foot, shoot foot with the Indianapolis Colts. That's what it seems like it is, especially on the offensive side of the ball, in key situations like that. Obviously, the defense, we already talked about that. We'll talk about that a lot more. Very, very poor first half. I thought they looked a little better in the second half, but still, I mean, completely embarrassing performance from them all the way around. No question about it. So, I mean, it just was a total team failure, Derek. I think if this is a game where you point to, and even though you only lost by 6 in this game, it was a total team failure. I really think there's, like you said, I think one player definitely that you look at and say, I mean, you can't really criticize him outside of, not hanging on to the ball a couple times. But other than that, maybe you throw in a guy like Alec Pierce as well. But that's about it. I mean, when you really look at it, it was that rough for the Colts, especially. It was weird. It's like the Colts cannot play complementary football, man. Yeah. It's like either the defense looks like total crap or the offense looks like total crap, or they both look like total crap. It's like they can't completely play. Either they play complementary poorly, they can't play it well. And that's what's frustrating about it is like, the Colts defense, for as bad as they were in that first half, they still only allowed 10 points in that game and only allowed 16 in the total game. So, like, say what you want, and we will talk about how bad the run defense was. But, I mean, especially in that second half, the defense gave you opportunities there.
Yeah.
It gave you opportunities, plenty of opportunities to be in this game. And you just had critical moments in that second half on the offensive side of the ball, which I know we'll talk about as well, where it was either just poor execution, poor play calling, or a combination of both. And that was just what was so frustrating about it is we even saw it last week against the Texans, Derek, just blown opportunities that the Colts have where they can't execute when it matters. And that's what's the most frustrating part of this is like this team, is just a couple more executed plays away from being 2-0. I mean, it really is. Like it's a matter of a couple plays.
Yeah.
Now, this game, it just felt like the Packers really took it to the Colts, but think about it, Derek. If the Colts convert one of those fourth downs, or if A.D. Mitchell catches the pass, that's wide open, like, a couple of those plays go your way, how much of a different game are we talking about?
For real.
Like, it's crazy. But that's been the name of the game for the Colts, is just lack of complementary football and honestly lack of execution from players that you frankly expect not just better from, but exponentially better from. And we're going to call it a lot of guys because there was a lot of pitiful performances this game and even this first couple weeks of the season. But yeah, man, just overall, just a deflating loss because you're not even playing against the starting quarterback. Like, if this was the case against Houston, we have a little bit of a different tune like we did last week because, okay, we knew Houston was going to be good. They had their starting quarterback. Everybody was pretty healthy. This game, Jordan Love's not even in this game. You're playing against Malik Willis, so it's a whole different ball game. But yeah, just a very, very discouraging game for the Colts. And it makes you start thinking long-term, some of these pieces that you have under contract right now, should they be a part of your future?
And even potentially like some of your own coaches and executives too. Like we're going to be talking about that throughout the year. Like if we have more performances like this, then some people's jobs are about to be on the line. Yes. Cody, I don't know about you, but like, does it feel like there's not as much creativity for this offense this year? Like, I don't know what it is, but it just feels to me like Shane Steichen's getting away from the creativity aspect that you had with Anthony Richardson last year. I don't know if you think that way, but like for me, it's just like I see the Colts get like some of these drives where they move down the field really well, but like for the majority of the game, it's like all stale to me. At least that's what it feels like.
Yeah, I definitely think there's just this is kind of what I always felt like also with like Frank Reich. It's like, just don't overthink it, man. Like just do what you do well. And it just felt like there were some times where the Colts honestly didn't play to their strength. And that was what's the most frustrating part of it is like, and we'll talk about this, Derek. I mean, the Colts had 140 rushing yards, but it felt like they had 15, like they didn't run the ball hardly at all until that second half. And that was the most frustrating aspect of it is just like you just didn't have playing to your strength, and you made Anthony Richardson roll out a lot and throw the ball a lot. But when it comes to the creativity, it does feel like a certain way, and maybe that is just the fact that you don't have Josh Downs. I mean, I know that's not the entirety of the offense, but in certain ways, it does feel like from what we saw last year in AR's rookie season to now, it does feel a little bit more vanilla to me. I don't know what it is about it, but maybe it is just the receivers frankly being terrible the last couple weeks, especially this week, hanging on to the football and things like that. So I don't know what the deal is, man, but yeah, they got to figure some stuff out because this offense has not been good. I mean, recently, yeah. I mean, especially in the critical downs, they've moved the ball. Like you look at this game and you're like, okay, you had almost 200 yards passing and 140 yards rushing. So it's not like the Colts couldn't do anything moving the ball, but it was just in those critical moments where you just weren't able to do anything. And that was the most frustrating aspect of it, was just the lack of execution. And that's, it doesn't matter how many yards you put up. If you can't execute, it doesn't matter. And that's what we saw last week from the Colts too, just the failure to execute on third down and fourth down, which really doomed them and honestly cost them the game last week. And I think in certain ways cost them the game this week. It's just, the plays are there to be made. You just got to make them, and not have those stupid turnovers, which we'll talk about. Anthony Richardson had a couple dumb ones today, or just executing even like the simple plays, like just make the routine catches, or just don't overthink it on 3rd and 1, run it with your running back, like your running back you just paid a crap ton of money to, like that sort of stuff. It's like, don't outsmart yourself. And I feel like the Colts have done that at times the last couple weeks.
Yeah, so let's go ahead and hop to the first guy. And I think what also is disappointing, Cody, as well, is like knowing how bad the Colts have played, especially defensively, and knowing that you've lost these last 2 games by a combined total of 8 points.
Yep.
Like that's what's even more depressing. Is it's not like the Colts are getting blown out. Like the defense has played terrible. Like, they have the worst rushing defense in the NFL by a long shot. And yet somehow, some way, this team is barely losing games. Barely. So anyway, let's go to Richardson here. So we'll have another video on this, guys, about like what our thoughts are on Anthony Richardson and how he's looked throughout the start of the year and like what we expect going forward. I mean, Cody, I mean, we'll both admit it. I mean, this was not a great game from Anthony Richardson by a long shot. Way too many mistakes on Anthony Richardson's part. Obviously, almost pretty much all the interceptions he threw today were all completely his fault. We gave grace to him last week because Kylan Granson fell on the turf for that interception. But the two interceptions that he threw, minus the one that was the interception to end the game because of the Hail Mary, the two interceptions he threw, all on him. Bad throws, bad decisions. Had multiple times where he failed to secure the snap. Multiple times where he could have ran the ball on an RPO, but chose not to and allowed Jonathan Taylor or himself to not get big yardage. So, no doubt, Anthony Richardson made a lot of mistakes in this game. But I don't think the box score is a good indication of what he actually did in this game for the Indianapolis Colts. I mean, realistically, if you took away the drops of the wide receivers he had, he'd realistically would have been like 22 or 23 of 33 for nearly 300 yards and 2 touchdowns had his receivers done a better job today. So, I mean, no doubt that Anthony Richardson looked bad, but I think the box score doesn't do him justice for how bad the rest of the team looked.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Derek, like, we believe in Anthony Richardson. We believe he can become a good quarterback. I'll admit it. Like, today was probably his worst performance we've seen from him as a pro. Like,
yep.
But Derek, like, this is the thing. So many people are so easy to give up on Anthony Richardson after a bad performance. I'm like, guys, let's not lose perspective here. Like, this is his rookie season, essentially. Yep. Like, he's going to have moments where he has the, what the heck are you thinking, man? Like, what kind of throw was that? Why are you throwing it when a guy's clearly covered? So I am not shocked by that. And I don't think anybody else should be as well. Like, those were bad. Those were not good. Like, we can admit that. But also, like, we know that was going to be a thing because AR is still very raw as a passer. He's still very raw in that aspect of his game. He's still developing as a pocket passer, right? So I'm not shocked that he had a bad game today passing the football. I'm not shocked at all. And I think it's just something where, yeah, he's not naturally a good pocket passer. Like, just naturally, that's not his game. But that's just what it's going to take with him. I think that's what we just saw last year, Derek, at times. Like, a lot of people try to think like if they had Anthony Richardson last year, they would have won more games. I don't know if they would have, Derek, because as much as crap as we give Gardner Minshew, he at least in the short to intermediate game last year, he actually was pretty decent. And that's where AR really struggles in or has struggled in so far. And we knew that. So, yes, okay, I will admit Anthony Richardson did not look good today, but you cannot tell me, Derek, like, even though he had mistakes and he did not help at all with those 2 turnovers, I mean, I'm just going to count the 2. The last one was kind of a prayer, so whatever. But those 2 turnovers, yeah, okay, those were not good at all. But, like, how many times did he throw it on the money that his receivers dropped it? I mean, A.D. Mitchell with that clear drop. It was 2 back-to-back drops. Pittman and Mitchell just completely dropping passes. Kylan Granson drops a pass in the end zone, and that's just 3. I'm sure there was more than that.
Way more than that.
Way more than that. At least 5, I would count in this game. And if you talk about that,
I would have said 7. I counted 7. So if you said
7, he would have been 24 of 34 passing in this game for probably, I don't know.
I said probably like 300 yards.
I would say 250, something like that.
Easy.
So easy. So, I mean, you look at that and you say, okay, like, the receivers did not do him any favors today. Yes, he looked poor today he had 2 bad decisions today. Maybe 3, if you want to count the kind of the tip to one to Pierce.
Yeah, 3 or 4.
Okay, that wasn't a great one. But again, you're backed up. You're trying to make a throw. Like, it happens. But Yeah, I mean, I look at it and I say, I blame the wide receivers and the tight ends and everybody receiving the football, really outside of Alec Pierce, even though he did have one slip. Like, I blame pretty much everybody else for just being poor today. I mean, very poor today. I mean, Derek, what the heck is Kylan Granson even doing out there? I made a tweet, Derek. I'm like, why is he even out there? Like, he doesn't make plays.
He
He
doesn't
never
make
makes
plays.
catches.
There's nothing. He does nothing.
Like, give anybody else an opportunity, please. And also, Derek, what the heck is Michael Pittman doing? Like, first 2 weeks, he's been on non-existent. This is the guy that you paid a lot of money to, and he has not done jack crap for you so far. And this is a guy that you're supposed to be like the number one guy for Anthony Richardson, and he has not done anything so far. And he's dropped passes. So it's like you got to figure that out. Talked about AD Mitchell already. I mean, pretty much everybody. Taylor, I know the pass wasn't the best, but he's got to catch that as well out of the backfield. I think he could have thrown it a little bit better, but also you look at it and you say, you still are getting paid that amount of money to catch that ball. Make it happen. But yeah, I kind of look at it like that, and I'm like, okay, like I put that into perspective. AR made some poor decisions. All right, you'll take those. That happens, but like, the other plays, some of the other incompletions, you look at it and you say, if his receivers would have even caught half of those, so say there were 7, they would caught 3 or 4 of those, it might have been a completely different ball game.
It could have been
the football. I mean, it really could have been, right? And if you convert that third down where you just give the ball to Taylor, like so many other things that you could have done in this game where you're just like, I just don't get it. But decision making, I will say, was not good for me today.
I swear to God, if for some reason Jonathan Taylor, we don't hear something that Jonathan Taylor was hurt, like, what in the actual hell was going on with Jonathan Taylor at the end of the game? Why was he not in? I don't get it. I don't get why Jonathan Taylor was not in that game unless he was hurt and for some reason nobody else was saying anything, because everybody else was saying the same thing. Trey Sermon is out there and Tyler Goodson's out there, and I'm like, wait, why is Jonathan Taylor not out there? He was standing on the sideline looking like he was ready to go back in. But you're right. Like, at the end of those games, why are we not seeing a Jonathan Taylor on a 3rd and 1? Why are we not seeing that? And even at the end of the games, like, I don't understand it. There's no way that was situational football. There's no way. Jonathan Taylor was your best player today. Jonathan Taylor was your only player that showed up from the moment he stepped on the field to the end. And he had 12 carries for 103 yards and had 2 catches for 32 yards. So the guy accounted for almost 140 yards of your 300 something that you got. Like, I mean, that's ridiculous. Like, how I better hear that there was something wrong with Jonathan Taylor. If there's nothing wrong with Jonathan Taylor to start the week, then immediate red flag on Shane Steichen. Immediate red flag. Because that we've seen it so many times now where personnel decisions and some of the play calling has just been terrible. I mean, for the offense's perspective. And you already said it with the wide receiver group. Alec Pierce is the only one that's been showing up over the first 2 weeks. I cannot believe that Alec Pierce is the number 1 wide receiver on this team right now. It's actually insane. Like, Michael Pittman's not showing up on a consistent basis. Adonai Mitchell dropped way too many passes today to make up for the 1 catch that he made. And, I mean, Jonathan Taylor was your second leading receiver. Like, what are we doing here? Like, this is so bad. And obviously Anthony Richardson and Adonai Mitchell are not on the same page. I don't know what needs to be fixed because they looked so good in training camp. So good. And so far through the first 2 games, they have looked horrendous. But let's talk real quick about Jonathan Taylor. Or let's just talk about the running game in particular. Like we said, Jonathan Taylor, 12 carries for 103 yards, 8.5 yards a carry. And even Anthony Richardson, 4 carries for 37 yards himself. I mean, Cody, I couldn't believe that we were throwing the football as much as we were. I'm surprised that we only ran the ball 18 times. Like, seriously, why?
That's a great question. That's what I was asking in the first half. I was so like, typically when like a good run happens, you're excited. I was pissed in that second half because I'm like, why haven't we been doing this the entire game? I was so upset because I'm like, seriously, it's not rocket science. The Green Bay Packers can't stop the run. We knew they couldn't stop the run a week ago. So why in the world are we trying to throw the football against a secondary that has Jair Alexander and also has Xavier McKinney in it? Why are we doing that? It doesn't make any sense to me. And so I was just so frustrated by that because, like, how do you give Jonathan Taylor 5 carries in that first half? How do you do that? And how do you justify that? It just is so confusing to me the way the Colts have used Jonathan Taylor in this game and how the fact that, like, he was running the football so effectively. You mentioned it, over 8 yards per carry, and he only got 12 carries in this game. That's absolutely abysmal that Colts would do that. And especially in that first half when your offense was horrible. They didn't do anything. You laid a goose egg in that first half, Derek. Like, the fact that happened and you didn't run the ball hardly at all. And we were wondering why the heck the Colts are getting completely decimated in the time, discrepancy. It's because you're not running the football.
And another thing, too, is, like, even if we want to say, like, in that fourth quarter, Jonathan Taylor was hurt, like you said, he ran the ball only 5 times in the first half, and he was averaging 8 yards a carry still. Like, why in the first half was Jonathan Taylor not a bigger process in the offense in that first half? I don't understand it.
It's so just bizarre to me. And that's what I think is kind of a red flag that you talked about with coaches and play callers is, like, if you're not getting your best player involved, like, there's an issue there. There's an issue there. And that's exactly what Shane Steichen did against the Houston Texans last year. And honestly, a big reason, Derek, why the Colts, didn't win the division in certain ways, because you didn't have your best player on the field when it mattered. And that's exactly what happened again today. So that's now twice that I believe Shane Steichen has cost you games. And this offensive play calling, that is horrible, terrible. Shane Steichen might be able to scheme up a lot of things, but situationally, he has been bad in certain ways on the shorts when it comes to running the ball and just things that, like, you wouldn't think twice about. And that's what's just so confusing is, like, stop trying to be smarter than everybody in the room and just do the routine things well. Like, you have Jonathan Taylor. He's averaging 8.5 yards per carry at that point. Odds are he's going to pick up 1 yard. Like, come on, man. If he's not hurt, give him the ball. Don't put Trey Sermon in there. Don't get cute. And even if you do have Trey Sermon in there, run it down the middle, man. Like, don't try to go spread it out with AR in the RPO game, and don't do that crap because all of a sudden you go from 3rd and 1 to 4th and 4.
Yep.
Like, and that's exactly what happened in this game. And so that's the frustrating aspect of it is just, like, just stop overthinking it so much. You haven't scored a whole lot. Points are at a premium. Don't get cute on me. And that's exactly what Steichen did. And that's what's frustrating about it, Derek, is, like, the Colts do something well and they go away from it. It just doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense. That's exactly what Frank Reich did. That's exactly what he did. And that's what got him fired.
Guys, football season is right around the corner. Definitely got to make sure you're getting in on the excitement with Prize Picks, America's #1 fantasy sports app. You guys can now win up to 100 times your money with as little as 4 correct picks, guys. You can turn $10 into $1,000 with any entries today on Prize Picks, America's #1 fantasy sports app. I mean, guys, look, I'm looking at some of these entries here. And if you're an Indianapolis Colts fan like myself, which you probably are because you're on here right now, well, I'm just looking at some of these season numbers here. And some of the stuff for Anthony Richardson, I have to get in on. Guys, we have one right here where it's 7.5 on the season rushing touchdowns for Anthony Richardson. Folks, Anthony Richardson had 4 rushing touchdowns in just 10 quarters of football last season. What do you think he's going to do this year when he's actually healthy and fully capable of going? Now, obviously, they're playing into the fact that they think he might get injured. Anthony Richardson doesn't. That 7.5 is an easy more when you want to talk into that one, guys. So make sure you are getting in on the action of getting some of these numbers for Anthony Richardson and other Colts players as well. Remember, guys, be sure to download the Prize Picks app today and use the code BTJ for your first deposit match up to $100. And the crazy part is like you were doing something well, you didn't do it enough. But for some reason, the team on the other side of the field did exactly what they knew they needed to do. Cody, the Green Bay Packers ran the ball. I'm gonna make sure I say this correctly for you guys. All right, just listen to this number: 53 times. 53 runs. The Green Bay Packers threw the ball, Cody, or had 3.75 runs per pass attempt today. They ran the ball 3 3/4 more than they did passing, and yet somehow, some way, won this freaking game. We're gonna shift to the defense now because this is unacceptable. This is unacceptable. The second week in a row, you have given up over 200 yards rushing. I don't care about the deep. I don't care about the injuries. I don't care about any of that. This rushing defense, it might be the worst rushing defense that I have ever seen, ever. And the fact that you're getting more and more injuries on top of it just makes it look even worse. In that first half, the Green Bay Packers did anything they wanted to you. There was nothing you did to stop that offense. You were lucky it was not a 3-score game going into halftime because Josh Jacobs got greedy and left that ball hanging just long enough for Zaire Franklin to rip it out. Freaking lucky. Dude, 237 of that came in the first half. The most yards in a game in a first half in 23 years in the NFL. I mean, and yet Shane Steichen goes out there and says, I'm still confident in Gus Bradley to figure this thing out. No, you don't. If you actually are confident in that, then you are blind, sir. Like, seriously, that is like, I don't even expect you to lie. I don't even expect you to tell the truth, but I certainly don't expect you to go out there and BS the fans and make us think that you're actually comfortable with Gus Bradley to figure this thing out. Like, are you serious?
Yeah. That's what's the most frustrating thing is, like, Derek, it was, he said, historically bad. Historically bad.
I don't even know if there's another team that has given up 300 yards this year, Cody. In rushing altogether. And the Colts have given up 400. It's like almost 500 yards rushing, almost 500 yards through the first 2 games. Like, that's insane.
Derek, if I have to see any more Taven Bryan on my screen, I might just gouge my eyes out. It's bad, man.
If I have to see anyone besides Grover Stewart and DeForest Buckner, I might gouge my eyes out. And guess what? We might be losing Buckner for a good chunk of time, too. I was
going to say, yeah. But yeah, man, it's bad. I mean, if this is a game that doesn't, like, make some sort of changes happen, I frankly don't know what will, Derek, because like you said, it was so bad in that first half. Green Bay did whatever they wanted to you running the football. And I just don't really, Derek, this might be like sad of me to say, but I don't know if there's a single player, healthy player on this defense right now that I want on this football team next year at this point. Like, again, they could get better, but they've all not been good. Like, pretty much. I mean, Derek, isn't it crazy? Who would have thought that we would say right now Nick Cross was the best player on the field on the defense today?
And even him had like a couple times during that game where it was like, dude, what in the world are you doing? Like, I mean,
tell you what, man, I texted you this, and this is kind of how bad it's going to be, man. It's like if your 2 captains on the defense, Kenny Moore, Zaire Franklin, can't even make a routine tackle, you're screwed. You're screwed. Your leaders can't even do it. That's what's so frustrating is like,
no wonder that Nick Cross has 29 tackles through the first 2 weeks because the opposing team is on the field for 3 times as long as our offense is. Like, we can't get on the field.
This has come to the point where if this continues, I'm gonna be honest. I think you're gonna need to look for maybe an entire new linebacking core because they didn't do anything today. Again, they talked so much crap this offseason, but 2 weeks in a row, Derek, they have been bad. They have been very, very poor. And Kenny Moore has not been good either. Derek, when you think about it, he had a really poor grade against the Houston Texans. Today, he had that missed, blown coverage, whatever you want to call it, on Malik Willis, where, he threw the first touchdown, like just things like that. And Jalen Jones goes out there and gets mossed. It's like, I don't have any confidence in really any of the corners right now. It's kind of rough, man. I don't really have confidence in really any player on this defense. And the only player I really do is injured. So that's what's the most frustrating thing about it is like, man, I just don't even know where to begin with this defense because I will give them this credit, Derek, for as little credit as I can give them. In the second half, they definitely looked a little better. That's not saying much.
They looked a lot better in the second half, at least from stopping the run. Dude, they gave up 24 rushing yards in the second half.
So, what the heck happened?
Right. Why do you give up 237 in the first half, but give up 24 in the second? I can't even give you credit for that. I can't. I know you're trying to, and that's perfectly fine. I can't give them credit for that. You are historically bad in the first half, and you are so lucky that that game wasn't a 4-score game by the end of the half. That game was over from the moment you stepped on the field. The moment you stepped on the field, everyone knew Green Bay was better than you. From the moment that first snap happened. I mean, it's bad how bad they were, dude. And you're right. The secondary, Malik Willis threw 12 of 14 today. I mean, the only 14 throws that he had, it's not like he was the only throw that pissed me off to happen was Jalen Jones on that out route. He saw it the whole way, Cody, the whole way, and still allowed Dobbs to get the positioning and jump over him and make the catch. You saw it before Dobbs even saw it. And yet somehow, some way, Dobbs mosses you. Are you serious?
You have no playmaking in that secondary. No playmaking in that secondary right now, and that's very concerning.
And it hurts that Julian Blackmon isn't out there, that Juju Brents isn't out there. Nick Cross was dealing with a little bit of injury today. But, and Cody, we may be without Buckner for a long time.
Yeah, and
you know what pisses me off too, Cody, is I want to know why was Grover Stewart not in there a lot more in that second half? Yeah. Seriously, there were multiple times when Josh Jacobs was running and he had some good runs. Even in that second half, had a couple solid runs. Grover Stewart was nowhere to be found. I'm like, are you what are we doing? Why are we keeping Grover Stewart off the field? I know that we're struggling, but there's nobody behind him that's worth any time on that field.
That's what I'm saying is why is Taven Bryan seeing more than 5 snaps? Realistically, why?
Literally.
It's so bad, man. So bad. I don't even know where to begin, but it was just
so bad. I don't know.
Poor execution. I mean, Derek, if this continues, there's no way they keep Gus Bradley. There's no possible
way. You can't. No, not with this. And you know what? The sad part is if we lose Buckner for an extended period of time, that's not going to help. That's our best defensive lineman, and he's probably going to be gone for at least a month. The dude had to be carted off the field. There ain't no way he's coming back this next week. There's no way. The dude's a warrior and yet had to be carted off. There's no way.
Yeah. And Latu got hurt too, so it's just
Latu's hurt. I didn't even think about that too. Yeah, he got hurt at the end as well.
I just don't even know, man, anymore. Dude, it's all these injuries plus poor defense already. It's just it's gonna probably get worse, which is hard to even imagine. But Derek, this was probably the worst quarterback on your schedule. That's scary.
Yeah, that was the worst quarterback that you're gonna face all year, and he just destroyed you. I mean, I'll give it this. Next week, yes, you might face a better quarterback in Caleb Williams potentially, but it is also the Chicago Bears offense with Matt Eberflus at the helm. So clearly, I don't think that their offensive game plan is going to be great. But I'll tell you what, Cody, I have no confidence in this team anymore. I don't have any confidence in
It's
them.
hard.
It's,
Like I
it's
want
hard
to.
to have any. I am just, I'm at my wit's end. I'm 2 games into this season, and I have lost all confidence in this defense to do anything. And on top of it, I mean, the only thing this season is for this is for Anthony Richardson to just gain experience. That's the
Yep.
only thing with this season now. The only thing. Because regardless of whether or not, if Anthony Richardson puts it all together, you're still, even if you win games, you're still not going to win games convincingly. You're still, you're going to lose. You're going to like win in shootouts. That's it. Like this is so bad. Like this defense is abysmally bad. I know we've had a lot of injuries, but no amount of injuries should be allowing you to give up 250 rushing yards a game.
No.
None.
No. Not at all. So, I mean, we could keep going, but I mean, I think it's just pretty simply like,
oh yeah,
what was that? What was that performance? It just was. I mean,
it was bad.
To say embarrassing, it was historically embarrassing. And so, Derek, I want to ask you this question though before we kind of wrap it up, talk about a few other things. When is the last time you have felt this way about this team? Like, because obviously last year we had some hope, even though there were some games where the Colts lost, they should have won. I mean, like, this is the most, like, the least confident you felt in this team since when?
Since week 2 of 2022.
That's scary, man.
Yeah,
I'm not there. I'll say that.
I'm glad you're not, but like I am. I'm at that point now. 2022 feeling right now. I am so sad that I'm saying that. But like I can't with this. This defense is absolute garbage. And Anthony Richardson is trying to go through these growing pains, but this offense is so abysmally bad at making it even worse. I mean, again, Anthony Richardson, he has his problems. He's going to have to learn it. But our receivers dropping passes all the time and our offensive play caller not getting creative at any point in the offense is just driving me up the freaking wall, man.
Yeah, I get it. It's more frustrating when it's just like it's so historically bad. Like that's what I felt like. It's kind of like a similar feel to the Colts offense in 2022, but it's just now it's on the defensive side of things. It's kind of interesting. But here's the issue, Derek. You don't have this historically or this really good offense right now, like compared to what you had in 2022 when you actually had a defense that was semi-competent. Now, there is the Anthony Richardson factor, which is definitely something you can talk about. And, you were able to run the ball effectively. The offensive line, I felt like for the most part, Derek had a pretty good game. So there are still pieces on this offense that make you think they can figure it out. And hopefully you get Josh Downs back next week so that can kind of help with that. But it is just frustrating for sure. And, the last thing I want to kind of talk about here, Derek, is you have a lot of guys now already who are not living up to their contracts. Now, again, for some guys, it's still very early. They just got extensions or whatever. But for some other guys, next offseason, Derek, they might be on the chopping block because they have not lived up to those contracts. Specifically, Matt Gay continues to not be a good kicker. I mean, at this point, Derek, I'm kind of like Spencer Schrader. Put him out there. I don't care anymore. Like, I'm done wasting my time with Matt Gay. Like, you're paid how much to miss a kick like that? Like, come on, man. It's ridiculous, man. If you're going to pay a kicker that much, you expect him to be automatic. And Matt Gay has not been anywhere near that.
Nowhere near
at all. Nowhere near it. And you have multiple other guys, like I mentioned. You paid your defensive line, really your front seven, a crap ton of money this offseason in retaining a lot of those guys and signing Raekwon Davis. And that's the performance you get. For all the investment you put in that front seven, it's frankly embarrassing what you've gotten so far from them. So a lot of guys there that you might be like, I don't know what we're going to do with these contracts in the next couple of years if they continue to play this way. But it's just kind of rough there. And then you talk about Michael Pittman, who has just not really lived up to that expectation yet. Hopefully he can get it, going right. I mean, Michael Pittman, I think, is a guy that you can more give the benefit of the doubt to. Hopefully he'll get it figured out. But again, there's a lot of those guys that you're paying that should be the core pieces of your team that are just not performing that way at all. And that's a big reason why you're 0-2 is because your superstar players aren't playing like it. Like we said in 2022, when your superstar players, the guys you were paying, were not playing like superstar players. And that's why you ended up winning 4 games, is because your superstar players were playing poor. And all the guys, if that's how your leaders are going to play, like they set the tone for that defense. And if that, or your team in general, and if that's how your leaders and your captains are going to play, you're screwed, man. I hate to say it, but like you're in big trouble.
So this just from Joel Erickson. Hold on a second. I just want to make sure I get this because I saw it. So Jonathan Taylor says there was no injury for him near the end of game time. None. So Jonathan Taylor not being played at the end of that game was by choice by Shane Steichen. I don't know. I don't know what to think anymore.
I don't know. I'm done trying to figure it out, man. It's infuriating. I mean, Derek, we would have never said this at the beginning of the season, but if this is going to continue and it's going to cost you games, like, I don't know what to think about Shane Steichen anymore. Like, if this is going to continue to be a trend with you, like we knew AR was going to have issues, like that wasn't a question, but the players and the execution that should be your bread and butter, if you're not doing that and you're not putting your players in positions to win, I have some issues with that. Mm-hmm. So just a very infuriating thing all the way around, Derek. I mean, we could keep talking, and we probably will, but I don't even know what else to say, man. I feel like I've talked about it a lot at this point. I was so fuming in the entirety of this game. Is just like seriously, why can't we play like a halfway competent team? Like, I think there is, at least I know it's early, Derek, but I don't know how you feel about this, but there's just a different vibe about this team this year from what last year was. Like, I just feel like there's a lot less belief that they can get it done when it matters,
Yep.
Like, and last year, like, as much crap as the Colts had to endure, they won games. They came through, even though if it wasn't always pretty, but they came through and they won some games, right? In some ugly fashions, but they did it, right? Think about that Baltimore game. They went down to Baltimore and they won last year. They did some things, like even in the Jacksonville game in week 1, like they made that comeback and they almost won that game. Like, I don't get that feeling this year with the Colts, at least in the first couple games, especially this game. It just doesn't feel like there's that same vibe there. I don't know if you feel that, but it just seems like there's more of like a sense of like trying not to screw up or trying not, doing the losing mentality. That's how it feels to me.
Yeah, it feels like I don't know what it is. It just doesn't feel like there's as much freedom. And I don't know. Anthony Richardson in this offense just looks stale. I hate that we have to wait till the fourth quarter to finally be able to know how to play competent offense. Yeah, but Shane Steichen's got to figure it out. I mean, this team is bad right now, so they need to fix some things.
A lot to figure out for the Colts. Like we said, they are going to be facing the Chicago Bears, so maybe they'll get a chance at winning their first game, but we'll see on that. But guys, let us know your thoughts here on the Colts' embarrassing loss in Lambeau Field to the Green Bay Packers. What are your thoughts on all the stuff that we have talked about so far? Shout out to everybody for getting us to 19K. Appreciate you, as always. We're going to stick it out, guys. We've been through worse. We've seen a lot worse, certainly. We'll see how this season continues out. Right now, hasn't been great for the Colts, but we'll see if they can figure it out here next week against Chicago. But guys, that'll do it for this one. Thank you so much for tuning in. We greatly appreciate it. And as always, guys, go Colts.